Hello, welcome to part two of this course, and we'll be discussing design thinking process. Design thinking process. What our learning objective? Understand each stage of the design thinking model, apply empathy as a core design principle, connect psychology with human-centered problem solving, and lastly, use brainstorming technique for practical product challenges. Now, might be asking yourself, what really is design thinking process? Now, design thinking process is a non-linear iterative process used to understand users, challenge assumptions, redefine problems to create solutions. It is human-centered design based on how people feel, think, and behave. Now, as a designer, your products, your platforms, your system have to do with people, right? People get to interact with them, and there's how you make them feel. There are thoughts that comes to their head, and there's how you makes them behave, right? And you achieve this deliberately through this design thinking processes. Now we have five stages in the design thinking processes, right? Number one is what we call empathize or empathy. This is simply understanding your user's word, right? This is putting yourself in the shoes of the users, understanding their pain, understanding how they feel, right? In order to know the appropriate solution to provide to them. Because you cannot give solution to something or a problem you have no idea about, or you've never experienced or don't know what it's like. So this is the first stage in the design thinking process. Empathy, putting yourself in the user's shoe, trying to see through the lens of the user, trying to understand from the lens of the user. The next step in this stage is define. Now, defining is basically and structurally itemizing the problems you have discovered, right? Now you have empathized with these users. You have empathized with your users. You now, oh, this is what they are going through. Defining now is structurally itemizing what the problem is, right? Having a clear direction, clear understanding of what the problem is really. The next phase, which is number three, is ideate. Now you've empathized with them, right? You have been able to define what the problem is really. The next thing is to ideate. Ideation in this sense now is, I call it creative thinking, right? Creatively thinking, how can I solve this solution? Remember the illustration I gave you in the part one course of the ketchup we have, where we had the bottle version and the plastic version, right? The bottle version was the current state of their problem, right? So empathy in this case now is trying to use a bottle ketchup and experiencing what it's like to use it, probably having the whole spillover and everything. When you experience it that way, you can now define this is the problem. Oh, whenever you open the cover, everything just pours out. Like you have no control of the amount of ketchup that comes out, right? The next thing is now idea. Think, how can I solve this thing? Oh, what about having a solution whereby the cover is the mouth is smaller and not big or as bogus as that of the bottles? Do you get? Now, this is you creatively thinking of solutions, right? So this is what happens in the ideation phase or in ideating phase, or this means ideate. Once this is in place, number four thing that takes place is what we call prototype or designing. Now, this is you've already empathized, you've already defined, you've already thought about creative solution, you know what the problem is, and you know how to solve the problem. This is now implementing those solutions, right? Let's give a practical example. You are trying to work on a platform for people with visual impairment or disabilities of any sort, right? You've probably maybe you must have not had any disability before, you don't even have any, right? But you have to put yourself in the shoes of such users. How will they interact? How do they interact with apps? How do they interact with platforms? When you've done all this, you've defined it, you have come up with a solution, then you now begin to design according to what is required. You now begin to design to meet the needs of this category of users. What happened? The next phase now is number 5, which is testing. Now, this is you learning from your user, getting feedback from your user. This is now sending it out, giving it to your users, shipping it out, them using it and giving feedback. Oh, this part worked, 80% worked for me, but 20% did not work. As a designer, you have to now go back and review the 20%. How can I fix this 20%? Because the goal of every product is to meet a need, you are creating a solution, you are solving a problem. The moment your product stops solving a solution, then that product is a failed product. The moment your product stop solving a problem, it becomes a failed product. So these steps are very, very important. And what you must know, take note, is it is a non-linear, like the definition said. So empathy could come second, ideate could come first, right? Define it must not go in a linear format, right? The process is not linear. And you could think of a solution first before you even understanding, which is empathy, empathizing with your users. The next stage we'll be entering is an example. An example. Originally, Airbnb failed because people didn't trust strangers, right? People did not trust them. And that was one of the reasons they failed in the market. In the early days, Airbnb faced significant challenges in attracting users and achieving sustainable growth. You know why? Key factors contributing to its initial struggles included poor quality photos of listings, a lack of trust in the platform, and difficulties in scaling the business. Have you ever come across a website and you just feel like this website feels like a scam website, like they're going to scam you? Maybe you're having a lot of ads popping up, having a lot of it's just rowdy. There's how a design will look, there's how a product will look. You won't feel safe, you won't be able to trust the platform. These were some of the issues Airbnb were facing at their initial phase. But what happened? They applied design thinking and they were able to add features like host profiles, right? Reviews, messaging, building trust. I'm sure most of the times there are many persons here who want to get a product probably from Jumia or any e-commerce platform. You always go to reviews, you go to the comments, you go to see what people have to say about that product. That is building trust. That is psychology. That is building trust. So as a designer, these things are meant to be in place. You don't just design for fun. You don't just design because you love a particular color. You don't just use certain style of design or apply certain style of design because that is the mood you are feeling. No. The question is, does it meet the user need? Does it solve the problem? Now let's dive into psychology in design. What is psychology in design really? Like, what is it? Psychology in design refers to the application of psychological principles to understand how users perceive, react, and interact with designs. Psychology in design refers to the application of psychological principles in order to understand how users perceive, react to, and interact with design. So this is just basically trying to use psychology to understand how a user will react. And this is in another form, empathy. Still trying to feel what the user feel. Still trying to see through the lens of the user, right? Still trying to understand. It's just like maybe probably someone is standing at a particular angle and is seeing something, and you, the angle you are standing at, you can't really see that same thing the person is seeing. So it's basically you moving from the position where you are to the position where the person is standing to see from his or her perspective. So this is what we mean by application of psychological principles to understand users' perspective. Now, it involves using human behavior, emotions, cognitive process to create things that are not only aesthetically pleasing, but also effective, intuitive, and engaging. Now, just trying to study, okay, why is it that whenever a user clicks on this website, they just minimize, they close, they get pissed and they leave. This is now you trying to use psychology to understand why a user acts in certain way, and now understanding that to be able to solve that problem. Because as a product designer or as a UI UX designer, your goal is to solve problems. You are meant to solve problems. Like I said, the day your product stop solving a problem, it becomes a failed product. So it is to you as a designer. The day you stop solving problems, you become a failed designer. Now, what psychology in design encompasses? First, understanding user behavior. So, psychology helps designers understand why users behave in certain ways, their motivations, their mental models when interacting with the design. So this is you basically going into details, understanding why a user reacts. Okay, why is there whenever they they click on this platform, they go to this particular page, they just get excited, they are always coming over and over again. This is you trying to understand their behavior. What are the things, what are their motivations, what keeps them coming? Why do users keep on opening and closing, going and they always come back to this platform? So this is first understanding user behavior. Number two is emotional design. It explores how color, shapes, layout, and other design elements evoke specific emotions and influence that behavior. Let's give a practical example. Color red. Red is used for destructive, danger, caution. So when psychology is in place, you now understand that, oh, for me, I want to create a destructive button. I should use red. Red passes the message more than using another color. I'm talking about something positive. Oh, you just won a coin, you just won something, probably maybe a game, or maybe you just completed the process. The check mark should be green. This is you evoking emotion. It give this feeling of, oh, calmness. Or imagine after winning something or after completing a process, the check mark is red. It's a distortion in emotion, like what really is going on, right? So these are basic psychological applications in order to design appropriately. Next is cognitive principles. Designers leverage principles like affordance, signifier, constraint, mappings, and feedback to make designs more discoverable, understandable, and usable. Taking feedback from your users, understanding constraints, right? Not trying to want to do everything, sticking to a particular pattern. Oh, I want a minimalistic design. Sticking to a minimalistic design. I have three colors, right? My primary, my secondary, and my accent color. Sticking to these principles, right? I'm making use of one font or two fonts. Sticking to these principles or these guides helps you to design more discoverable and understandable and usable designs. Now, why psychology is important in design? Why psychology is important in design? First, improved user experience. When psychology is appropriately applied in your design process, psychology leads to designs that are more intuitive, enjoyable, and efficient to use. And this is very straightforward. When you understand how a person reacts to certain things, like I just give an illustration about a button, right? A destructive button that is not red, or a checkmark icon that is red. You see that it causes a distortion in emotion. But when there is clarity, right? When things are applied the right way, a destructive button is red. Your design, it hits, right? It hits in the sense that it meets the exact need you want it to meet. Secondly, increased engagement. When psychology is appropriately applied to your design, users will want to interact with your platform. They will not just want to interact, they will interact with your platform because it meets their need, it suits their emotion, right? They feel good, they have a good experience interacting with the design. But when these things are not in place, you chase traffic away from the products, obviously. So why psychology is important is because it increases engagement. Next, enhance decision making. Psychology help you to make decisions faster and seamlessly. Design psychology can be used to influence user choices, guide them towards desired actions such as making a purchase or completing a form. So when there are sequence of instructions for a user to follow in order to achieve a particular result, it is way easier than just making it, randomizing it. So having a structured process for your user to follow makes your design sleek, it makes your design meet its need, and it is key. Next is strong brand identity. Consistent use of design psychology principles can help create a strong, recognizable, and brand identity. What this implies is when you when you make use of or you apply psychology appropriately to your design, there will be consistency. There will be consistency, basically, in the sense that you are following a particular pattern. You are not just randomizing things. You are not just doing things based on emotion. You are not just doing things based on how you feel, but there'll be consistency. You have color guides, right? You have text guides. You have grid guide. These guides are meant to help you create better design and make your design much more consistent. You have hex color code for your color palette. It's not like today you design with, let's say, 00FF. Tomorrow you design with 00FFF. Tomorrow you are moving from white, from black to gray, to ash or to gray. So when design psychology is appropriately applied, your design meets, it hits. I love that word. It hits. It meets. It hit at that target point. You know when an hater want to fire an arrow, right, and it hits at that particular point, that middle. That's what happens in such case when you apply psychology to your design. So what's the attacks? Apply design thinking through your lens of US observation. Based on tax one, remember I gave you a tax, right? Check out products, platforms that you interact with or you're interacting with, right? Look out for pain points. What are the problems you're having with this platform, right? That's one. Secondly, what are things you're enjoying about this platform? Like, why do you keep on going to TikTok and over again? Why is Snap your best platform, right? Why do you prefer Snap to WhatsApp? Itemize these things down. Then the tax two now is, in this case now, you just empathize, right? You just put yourself in the shoes of user. Now the next thing is now define the problem, clearly state it. What is the problem? I discover that whenever I send a message on WhatsApp, or let's say, let me give a practical example. Before TikTok comment section was updated, you can only type, but now update was done that you can now send in pictures and stickers in the comment section on TikTok. But on the platform, it was not like that before. So let's say before that was actually a problem. So he itemized it. I realized that most times I want to comment on TikTok, but I don't feel like typing. I just want to send an image or a sticker, but I can't do such. That is a problem, and that is you clearly defining what the problem is. Then now the next step now is to suggest possible improvement. Suggesting possible improvement. How do you feel? What do you think will solve that problem? How do you think that problem will be solved? When this is in place, just know that your design will hit. See you in the next class. Thank you. I remain your product design instructor, Ikani Alexander.